Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. I am joined by Eddie Drilling. He is the AT&T Arkansas president. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be with you, Roby, as always. Thank you.
Merry Christmas early to you. Might not get a chance to say that to you.
Same to you, my friend.
Lots of opinions on all sides of this issue over net neutrality. Tell me why AT&T thinks that this FCC decision is a good one.
Isn't it nice to be talking about something like this at Christmas time?
Right.
What a cheery subject.
It's right up there high on my list of wishes for Santa Claus.
What a cheery subject. Well, I think, you kind of have to go back a little bit, Roby, to understand a little bit of the history about this issue called net neutrality, which was probably misnamed from the very beginning.
We do that a lot in politics.
This has been a strange one, though, because it's been years being debated. And a lot of people, I don't think, understand it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there right now about it. But basically, when you talk about net neutrality, you talk about all internet traffic being treated equally. So the internet service providers like us and Comcast or Verizon and others would treat internet traffic equally. You wouldn't block people's access from websites. You wouldn't throttle or degrade the speed with which they get that information over the internet, and you won't discriminate against certain sites or content that people want to see. And so this has been evolving really ever since the Clinton administration, about as the internet industry and the internet service providers grew, and more and more people
and matured
and became so many more people using it as just a daily, you can't do business, you can't do anything without it. But, really in about 2010, most everybody in the industry agreed to internet principles about open internet and net neutrality. Mm-hmm. And really ever since then, those principles have been followed.
So what did the FCC change, and why was that good?
The reason what I'm getting to is in 2015, the then FCC that was controlled, by the Democrats, they issued, and we worked on it with them, some internet principles, which were much like what we'd already been following. But what they did was in order to enforce them, they invoked what we call Title II regulation, which in our view is a really heavy-handed regulatory regime, which was in the telecom industry, started back in 1934. It was intended to regulate old monopoly telephone companies based on railroad law from the late 1980s. I mean, not
the internet's the railroad
1880s.
Of information these days, Eddie.
If you had a monopoly,
right.
So it was based on a real heavy-handed regulatory framework that all of a sudden, wait a minute, the providers go, this is way overkill on what you need to make sure.
Force you guys to do a lot more compliance-wise.
It just threw a lot of uncertainty into the whole business.
Okay.
And it only applied to internet service providers. It didn't apply to any of the fringe operators in the internet. So we just felt like it was way heavy-handed in terms of what we needed. We were going to comply. I mean, you don't need to do that because it just throws a lot of uncertainty into it. So last week, the big part of what the FCC did, controlled by Ajit Pai and the Republicans now, was they're not scrapping the internet principles, which we all still agreed to abide by. What they are scrapping is the Title II regulatory regime that was set up by the previous administration to regulate the internet. So, they've gone back and defined the internet and internet service providers under Title I regulation, which identifies it as a internet service provision rather than like an old telecom law back from the 1934.
So I've known you for a quarter of a century. We've been friends for a long time here. So I know one of the things about you that I think is one of your best attributes is you're always calm, cool, and collected in understanding why people have different positions than something you may take. I've seen you in action up at the legislature. So tell me why some of the opponents of what the FCC did, what's their objection, concern from your point of view?
Well, You know, Roby, I tell you, I have been in this business a long, long time, and I've dealt with a lot of complicated issues. I think this is one of the most complicated that it is for people to articulate both sides of it. But never have, probably since Y2K and all the doomsday scenarios that everybody predicted about, you know, when the clock hit midnight 2000 that the internet was going to come down. I've never seen more, you know, doomsday reaction to something as I have to this. But I think there's this genuine fear out there among the opponents that somehow we are going to control the content of the internet. We're going to block, we're going to throttle, we're going to pick winners and losers, and you know, I just don't think that's the case. I don't think anybody in this industry thinks you can win, even if you wanted to do something like that. There's competition. People have alternatives.
Consumers would react.
Well, sure
they would say, "I'm not going with that provider anymore in that direction anymore."
Sure, they would. And again, you know, I don't think there's anybody in the industry that disagrees with the net neutrality principles. It's how you regulate it that we disagree on.
Yeah.
So, but I still think our opponents are out there thinking we've got to have this kind of heavy-handed regulation to make sure these guys don't get out of hand. And we're saying there's competition in the marketplace, people have alternatives, and you're not going to see that happen. And I guarantee you, and it comes from our top leadership, our CEOs made this statement over and over, nobody's going to see any difference in their service experience from us after this change in regulation.
So what happens next? Potential legal action, I would presume, potential congressional action, something else? What do you expect will be the next chapter of the net neutrality book?
Well, the opponents say that they are going to, take legal action. We did when this change came out in 2015. Yep. But the opponents say they will take legal action. That probably will be the case. There's talk about some sort of legislative solution in Washington, which I think it was the right thing to do. You know, it's hard to run a business like this and have an industry that can count on and be certain about their investment that they're making and what the rules are going to be. If every time you change administrations or who's in control, you have a new set of rules about how you run your business, and that's probably applicable to a lot of businesses, not just the telecom and internet service providing business. But I think it would be good if we had a bipartisan solution from Washington that set the rules clearly and codified the principles that we're all kind of living by now. Probably throw in some privacy protections as well, which I think is another big issue that people are interested in, and make sure that all the players are playing by the same rules. So I'm hopeful that is what happens. We're going to see also, just in addition to that, there are some states that have already announced that they're going to take action on a state-by-state basis about some sort of net neutrality rules, which can you imagine? Trying to operate a clearly interstate service like the internet with a patchwork of state-by-state regulations on.
Well, we were going to do that with healthcare at one point in time, and so why not?
Yeah, well.
You're not in the healthcare field. I'm not going to put you on that.
Don't take me there, please.
I'm not going to put you on that. All right, Eddie, thank you for coming on and explaining this a little bit more, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on. And again, just thank you for being here and appreciate you.
Merry Christmas.
All right,
thank you.
Too. That's all for today's program. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, But people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.